if you're building an application on the modern desktop, I think there's no better way to go than the Universal Windows Platform and UWP XAML. It is beautiful, Daren.
It is, but unfortunately most of my customers are not on the latest version of Windows. So I see all these fancy controls and features shipping, and I just can't use them.
Yeah, this is the down-level problem in Windows. The XAML team has something to say about it, and that's this episode of Dev Radio. Hey, and welcome to the next episode of Dev Radio. I'm your host, Jerry, and I'm here with Daren May. Hi, Daren.
Hey, Jerry. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing terrific. It's beautiful in Colorado. Daren, you know how I spell relief? XAML.
Well, there you go.
Absolutely. Is it only the most fabulous platform ever created? I mean, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. And, man, it creates a lot of passion around people.
It does.
When people love it, they love it, capital L. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could get the XAML platform team on the call right now?
It would. It would be fun.
It would. And I've been wanting to have this episode for so long. We've got Joe Stegman. He's the manager of the team. We've got Paul Gusmorino. He's the lead programmer. I am so psyched to have the right people on the call right now. I've got a serious killer question to ask.
Okay.
But I'm going to wait until they introduce themselves first. Joe, take just a second and introduce who you are so the audience knows who we're talking to.
Hello, I'm Joe Stegman. I'm the Group Program Manager for the XAML platform, and I'm also the Group Program Manager for the Accessibility platform in Windows. Happy to be here. I share the passion that Jerry is showing. We clearly love XAML here in Redmond.
Nice. Paul, you are the lead program manager for the entire XAML what?
XAML, we're all a family. We all work together and do it. So make it happen. Make the magic happen.
You put the X in XAML.
That's put the X in XAML. Cool, and some of the
Yeah, so if, Jerry, if I can just go off script, because we really don't have a script here. That Paul also puts the Fluent in XAML. He's kind of underselling what he does, but all the pixels, making the angle brackets is easy. Making those angle brackets produce pretty stuff is hard, and that's what Paul does.
Nice. Paul, you make pretty things. That's what I hear.
We try.
That's terrific. Paul, let's see. You've been on the team for quite a while now. Joe, you've been on the team for ever, I think?
For a while, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, so I started off in XAML, way back in Silverlight, if people remember that.
So we remember.
Shut up.
Yeah, that was me. And then, the team just kind of kept cruising along, and it turned into the Windows XAML team. And now we're the XAML team that's now part of Azure.
I see. So you are the Azure XAML team.
Well, we're still the Windows XAML team. We're really the Windows UI platform team is how you can think of it. We build the user interface platform that's used by Windows. We just happen to be in Azure, which is kind of more like the platform team for Microsoft.
All right, so my job makes me talk to a lot of developers around the country, and when I do, they're like, hey, I just read the news. People who are outside of Microsoft looking in, it must look like insanity. I mean, crazy. Because I know that from the inside looking in, it is insanity. So they talk to me, they're like, okay, so it seems like Windows was put under Azure, so what does that mean for XAML? Talk to me about what happened there, Joe.
So across Microsoft, we sort of split into two big divisions. There's the one division that's sort of the experiences division, and you can think of them as they're responsible for like apps and shells. And then there's a platform division, and that's really effectively where Azure comes in and where my team comes in. We build the platform, both the cloud platform as well as the client platform used by Windows, for example. And so that's why XAML's under there. We're part of the platform team, and as part of the platform team, we're building the platform for all the experiences.
Got it. Okay.
Nice.
So, Paul, now more than ever, XAML is like the Microsoft story for UI. Talk to me a little bit about things that have happened to XAML in the last, say, year, because things aren't holding still.
We've been moving ahead at I think a good clip, and not just in adding features, but also in changing the way you can access XAML and make use of it, so that people can more readily take advantage of it. And so one of those things we talked about at Build was XAML Islands. And that's a way that allows Win32-based apps, WPF apps, WinForms apps, etc., to make use of XAML, so you don't have to be a UWP to use it. And then the other big thing we've been doing there is something called WinUI, or Windows UI Library, which takes a lot of the controls and features of XAML and actually makes them available as a NuGet package that you can start to use without having to wait for the latest OS update to get those features. And so there have been a bunch of changes we've been making kind of to the fundamental mechanisms by which you can take advantage of the platform to make it more broadly available. And in addition, we've been just adding tons and tons of stuff to help you make great-looking, beautiful, powerful, productive apps. And so we've been investing a lot in not just kind of visual nicety stuff, although certainly there's been a lot of eye candy that has been people have seen tweeted about and all over with Fluent and animations and a lot of rich stuff there. But we've also really been investing in support for navigation and having better navigation framework available, in commanding and how you can have richer commanding, more powerful commanding, in lists and data presentation, and in forms and form controls. And so we've been investing both in making stuff really beautiful and great, but also really let you make powerful, productive experiences that let people work really well and do really, really great things.
So a lot of features that really more align with some of the line of business applications that enterprises will be building.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, one of the things that's been going on at Microsoft, at least in my opinion, is there's been a little bit of recognition of who we are and what we're really good at, and kind of a celebration of that, and Microsoft's always been the company that lets you do stuff, that lets you create stuff. I think Satya has some very funny line that he's used a few times, that if you want to be cool, go somewhere else. If you want to make others cool, come to Microsoft. And I think that's a little bit of like a cultural thing that's been picking up currency, where we're really focusing on, Microsoft's always been about empowering people. It's always been about platforms. I mean, back from when Bill Gates started it with BASIC, it's been about letting people create things. And so I think we've really been focusing on both the products, the OS itself. Windows is about letting people create stuff. That's why the marketing teams had all these like creators edition kind of, type of names and things they've come up with. But just even as a platform and as a company, we've really been thinking about how can we be the company that helps people make the most productive experiences for their users, people who have to go to work and get stuff done, not just, there's like a lot of, excitement and sexiness in the industry for like social media, like just, I'm just going to pan through, fake news stories, things. I think, we're really about letting you actually get stuff done and have a platform that supports that.
Paul, let me ask you, this has got to be the elephant in the room for me, is when we look at XAML islands in WPF, let's say, if I was a WPF developer, why am I wanting UWP controls in the first place?
That's a good question. I think there's a few aspects, to them that would make you want them. First, there really has been an evolution in form factors, I'd say. And a lot of laptops, laptops outsell desktops now, and a lot of laptops come with touchscreens. And it's not that you're going to do everything on your touchscreen, but there's a few things people tend to just do naturally, like pan, for example. They just go pan on the screen. In fact, you'll see a lot of people at stores kind of being confused if they try to touch a screen and it doesn't, pan and work right. And so I'd say one of the things you get right away just for free using all the, using modern XAML is it works not just great with keyboard and mouse, because we've done a great job with keyboard and mouse, but it also works with touch all the ways you'd expect. It also works with pen. And so I'd say one instant kind of benefit you'd get is even on like a lot of modern, laptops, it may not be 100% of laptops are touchscreens, but a lot of them are touchscreens, and people feel that your app's kind of not working right if they go and try and pan on it and it doesn't work right. And so I think one thing you get is just controls and things are really optimized for the modern form factors. I think you'll also see that there's just new patterns, new UI patterns that we've implemented only in modern XAML. So like navigation view is one that I know you and I have talked about, and I think you've even written an article on it.
Yeah.
And, that's a lot of apps want that kind of navigation pane pattern. And that's something that we never didn't exist at the time when WPF was made, and so we don't have that in WPF, but XAML has that. And so I'd say a lot of new UI patterns that are the way people are expecting to use their computer today are available in UWP XAML. And so that's another reason you might want to use it. And then finally, I think there is some a lot of visual appeal we've created with the capabilities with motion and styling and these effects like acrylic and so forth. And so I think depending on the type of app you're creating, maybe if you're an LOB app, that's not so important. But if you are trying to win consumers with something you're doing, or something that's kind of showcases your company's brand or something in some way that people see, taking advantage of some of those features might help you stand out. So I don't know. I'd say those are a few things.
Line of business apps and like beauty are compatible, don't you think?
They are. I think for so long the enterprise underestimated the importance of user experience. Everybody was just shipping Battleship Grey grids that were just full of data, and nobody was really thinking about, okay, let's make this a pleasure to use, and let's actually take away some of this noise so people can actually focus on the information at hand and do the tasks at hand. I think it's really a significant shift.
Think about all the work in XAML it would take to get UWP to be Battleship Grey.
One other thing, it's like an under-the-covers thing, I will say, but the Windows shell itself and major experiences on Windows are built with UWP XAML. The Mail app, which is very used, and a lot of the core experiences, Xbox shell even. And so one of the things about that is it's forced us as a platform to really optimize the performance of it, to really optimize the accessibility, all the basics and quality of it. And I think that's actually a pressure that WPF never truly had on it, originally, because it wasn't like the core OS itself was really built with that platform. And I think one of the things people can know when they're investing in their code on UWP XAML is it's the core platform that is so invested in their actual shell is written using it and actual core experiences from us. And so there's all that optimization has gone into it, all the millions and millions of
memory usage,
hundreds of millions of hours, hundreds of millions of hours of hundreds of millions of users, billions of hours of use on those code paths, really helping us flesh out all those bugs and making it a really robust platform. So I think that's
Joe. Let me ask you real quick. So he's Paul's really talking about something that a lot of developers are sensing as well. There's a big value in Microsoft as our first party, using the XAML platform, but there's also a sense of it's almost a question like, is XAML a first party platform or is it a third party platform? How do you answer that?
Well, we hear a lot of this quote from Satya where he's really forcing he wants first-party platform to be the third-party platform. So this really, it's one of those things that starts from the top where he doesn't want us to be like we have been in the past, which is we may have a different platform for first parties than we do for third parties. And so we really take it to heart that we want a great platform that can power these first-party experiences as well as power the third-party experiences. We get a lot of questions from users who say, hey, I see this in Office, or I see this in the shell. How can I do that in the platform, if you will? And we want to make sure rather than saying, sorry, that ribbon control is only in blah, we can now say, no, it's actually the platform that's powering that experience is the same platform that you can use to power your experiences. And sort of, as Paul has talked about, we've been focusing a lot on first party equals third party. And what we've done, though, is we've almost over-optimized for ensuring we have these higher-end experience kind of features in the platform. And now we're really trying to go back and fill the enterprise gaps. And part of that is what I think Paul's going to show you a demo of later on, which is what we're doing with WinUI, which is not just we're building out our enterprise control set and making that even broader than it is today, but also we're supporting it and providing it to developers in a way that they can consume it on the versions of Windows 10 they may have and not the most recent versions of Windows 10.
Sure. So I'd just like to touch on one of the things that Paul mentioned earlier about WinUI and the ability to be able to ship new experiences independent of releases of Windows. And also, one of the things that was in the news relatively recently was the extension of the support of certain versions of Windows 10 in the enterprise. And I think what you're about to show and talk about, I think is very compelling for that scenario.
Yeah. There are definitely developers out there watching that they are enterprise developers, and they have been waiting for what you're about to show us. I think that is totally true.
We get super excited about this as well. It's one of those things where we get asked a lot of times from our developers is that, hey, that's awesome. When can I use it? And then we'll say, oh, it's on the latest version of Windows or Windows 10. And they're like, oh. And so we're really working hard now that as we bring new features online, that we're bringing them online in such a way that we can get a much broader set of developers to be able to consume those. And that's what WinUI in some ways is a lot about, just that, which is not tying them to the OS, but rather tying them to maybe some underlying things in the OS, but not unnaturally tying to the OS. Ship them, really, if we have a new navigation control and it's not tied to anything specific in the OS, then make sure all developers on Windows 10 can consume that. And that's what we're doing with WinUI.
And to be fair, we're even solving a problem we have internally too. It's not just our external developers.
Yeah, it's funny in that our internal developers actually forced us down that path. I don't like to use the word force because Paul and I could both tell you that we've always wanted to be here.
We've always wanted to be here.
Yeah. But it was, the new version of Mail or Photos or whatever. Even those apps, they're like, you know what? We need to release on previous versions of Windows because that's where we're going to get our telemetry and get user feedback. And we want new experiences as part of that, and we need new controls as part of that. And so they kind of pushed us. They helped pave the way, in a sense, for people inside of Windows to understand how important it was for us to build a platform that wasn't just on the latest version of Windows, but went to earlier versions of Windows as well.
Paul, listen, I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to show it.
Okay, Paul, I can see your screen.
Yeah, excellent. So I'd love to show you a little bit of what we've got going on with WinUI. So first I'm just going to open, this is the XAML Control Gallery app. I think folks who are XAML developers there will be familiar with it. It's in the store. It's one of the samples we have on GitHub. And it's where you can go.
I'm not familiar with this beautiful version of it. No,
it's
not always been this pretty.
It's not always been this pretty. So this is actually the latest version of it that has all the kind of newest features in it. And so in fact this What's New section is showing a bunch of the new features that have just come out basically in RS5. New or improved in some way features. And some of them are simple little things like there's now drop-down buttons finally in XAML, talking about enterprise kind of gap filling, as well as kind of fancier things where we've enhanced animations and things, or that navigation view that I was mentioning before. Due to popular demand, we now support it on the top as well. So you can have top navigation or side navigation. So the sample's kind of showing off all those new features.
Wait, and don't just go so fast, because that was so long in the making to get that to work. You know what I mean?
Just casually threw it out there.
Let's just absorb the fact that we accomplished it. And I mean, it's just so much going on there.
Yeah.
All right, terrific.
Yeah. So we have a whole bunch of cool new features, but there's one feature I want to show you that's not immediately obvious, which is even though I'm running the sample gallery, this is from GitHub. I literally this morning just cloned the repo from GitHub. It's the dev branch, is what has the newest samples in it, and loaded into VS. Made sure I had the new SDK. But what's cool is this machine that I'm running it on. I'm going to open WinVer here, and you'll see is actually not the new version of Windows coming out this fall. It's the last version of Windows. It's 1803.
It's Windows 7. You're running Windows 7.
Almost.
Not there yet.
That's just a quick note, not an announcement.
It's 1803. So this is the last version of Windows, and yet I have the new features, a lot of the new features in it. What's going on here? Well, it's the sample gallery is now pointed to use WinUI. We released WinUI after Build. We announced it at Build, and we released it earlier this summer. And I'm going to open up the project in VS now just to show you what's going on here. So here I have the project in VS, and you'll see under References, there's now this Microsoft.ui.xaml. All right, you guys see that under References?
I see it.
So that's actually a NuGet package that's publicly available. That we're now linking to, and let me just show you how to get that. If someone's, I think most of your viewers are probably familiar with NuGet, but you just go to Manage NuGet Packages, Browse, and you can search for Microsoft.ui.xaml. Actually, here I'm going to uncheck this first just to show you my little flow here. But if you search for it, you'll find it there. Actually, you won't find it if you don't have this little checkbox checked, because we just pre-released it, so it's in pre-release right now, and we anticipate it being the official release soon, but we've already gotten a couple of versions of it out because we're trying to have a quicker cadence with people so they can get updates more often of new features as they come along. So anyway, you can just go here and you can go add it to your project. Then I'm going to close this now.
Before you close, I got to ask you about Direct right below it.
Oh, okay, yeah. That one there is a separate thing. Here, I'll go pop that back up a second.
Sure.
Microsoft XAML. This is there's a new set of XAML Direct APIs. We also announced these at Build. I talked about them a little bit in my Build talk, but basically these are just kind of a lower level set of APIs, really that target middleware developers. So if you're someone writing a middleware library, think of something like React Native or something like that, and you wanted to just do some operations like element creation and stuff like that directly, very efficiently, without going through some of the extra processing that the framework does to support framework features for people who are using XAML directly. These APIs are for you. So it's not for a huge audience of people. It's really just for people writing middleware libraries so they can more efficiently kind of poke it at some of the basics of the framework.
Effectively at a high level. Those are imperative APIs. So rather than an angle bracket button, you just say new button, and by doing that, we can make it more efficient and more performant.
Yeah.
That's really serving a group of developers that are amazingly vocal.
Yeah, well, and anyone who maybe uses middleware technologies or things that would call that API would benefit in the performance of their application. But
Brilliant.
All right. So, but you want the simpler one, Microsoft UI XAML. That's the main one. And so then, so there's two big sets of things in there to be aware of. There's a whole bunch of features, new controls, and so forth in the Microsoft UI XAML library. There's also updated styles. So if you want your app to have the latest styles, so we've done acrylic and reveal on list views and toolbars and various things like that. What you'll need to do is you need to merge those resources into your resource dictionary. And so that's just something you do right in the application resources. You just do these lines right here. And if you go to the docs, this is called out there as well. But just doing this alone, all of a sudden, without any other code changes to your app, you'd have the latest styling of the app, even down level where applicable, if that makes sense. So if you want to have kind of the newer styling, that's one thing you can get. But typically, you're not just about the styling. You want to actually use some of these new features. And so one of the screens I showed in the app was the drop-down button. I picked this one because it's very simple. And it's a button with a little chevron, and you click in it. Has a little menu with the other options off of it. And this drop-down button is one of the things in WinUI. And so if I go to the XAML page for it, if you want to start using the controls in WinUI, what you'll do is here you'll define that you'll kind of load in that namespace and give it a name. Okay, so see this line that I've highlighted here? Can you guys see that?
I see it. Yeah, no problem.
All right. So what I've done here is I've said if I use this mux controls prefix, then it'll actually use the Microsoft UI XAML controls namespace. So one thing to realize is there are controls that are in the core platform itself. Those are in the windows.ui.xaml namespace. Once you include Microsoft UI XAML, the controls are in that NuGet package are in the Microsoft.ui.xaml namespace, okay? So it's Microsoft.ui instead of Windows.ui. And so to make that work kind of with markup, you have to kind of load that namespace in and give it kind of a prefix that you'll use. And so here is the drop-down button. Now, if I were running on RS5, on the newest version of Windows, I could just do drop-down button without this mux controls, and it would have called the one in the platform. Okay? But that's no good if I want my app to work down level too. So instead what I've done is I've called the one in WinUI by having this mux controls prefix, therefore pulling the one out of the Microsoft UI namespace, and that's the one that actually works down level. And so this code here that you're seeing can work all the way down level to, I think we've said RS2. I'd have to go check on our doc site, but to a much older version of Windows that's well over the 18 months or even beyond that we support now.
So what happens if you're running on a version of the platform that does have the native drop-down button in it, and you've referenced the Max Controls namespace prefix? Are you using the one in NuGet or the platform?
That's a great question. You'll be using the one in NuGet. So if you do this, you're making an explicit choice as the developers, how we have it structured right now, about whether you use the NuGet one or the platform one. But the ones we check, we actually have one common code base. So on our end, there's a shared repository where our code lives that spits out both what goes in the platform and what goes in the NuGet package. So you can very safely just use the NuGet one, and you'll know it's the same version with all the same bug fixes and everything that's in the platform version. So it's a pretty safe choice to just pick the one in the Windows UI library.
Okay, great. It's good to know.
It not only is it safe, it may even be a teeny tiny drop better, because should I ever refresh or update my NuGet package, any fixes that are coming down the line, I would get in that NuGet package that may not have shipped with the platform yet.
You know, that's correct. And so the way we envision that working is there'll be both released and pre-released NuGet packages. And you can kind of think of those as the same as the insider flights of Windows and the final, official flights, final releases of Windows. And so the released ones will be ones that we've fully stabilized all the features in, and we've in fact pulled out any features that are not stable from. And so the pre-release ones may have some additional bugs, and they may have some features that are still under development that are in preview, because we're trying to get early feedback so we can make the best APIs for developers out there and get their,
and Paul,
their feedback.
this is better than conditional XAML, where I would originally say use the drop-down button if I have it, because then if I don't have it, it's empty.
Correct, exactly. And so it's a real pain. And so, not everything is in WinUI. There's some features that at this point in time are not in WinUI, although we're looking to see, what we can do to bring more and more for people in WinUI. That's our kind of vision with it, depending on developer need. But there certainly are some features. And so, like, if you go to that Control XAML gallery, I'll just air one out, is a combo box. So we've added a feature to combo box where we now support editable combo boxes. Okay, so you can say is editable equals true, and it turns into an editable combo box. So that means you can type a number. You can not only, for example, from this font drop-down, pick a size, but you can actually type one. Combo box is not at this time in WinUI. That's still only in the platform. We haven't put that control in WinUI at this time. And so that's an example of one where you'd need to do adaptive versioning. And if I were to go open that up, we show you an example of how to do that, where you just not have the is editable feature down level. So that's still something that exists for features that are only in the platform. But with WinUI, we hope to move away from this more and more, so you can just have the feature everywhere you need it, promitted the platform fundamentally can support that. There might be some new technologies that just depend on some underlying capability that we can't do that with. But in general, for most UI things, we can, for sure.
Got it. What's the easy way to know what controls are in WinUI and which ones are not?
Other than trying to do kind of IntelliSense kind of stuff, I think if you go to our docs, let's see here. So if you search for WinUI online, or you can kind of navigate around to find it. Here we kind of document all the things that are in the Microsoft UI library, and so you can see all the kind of the new controls that are there. If I can actually, let me find the right page for it. I want to stop for a second while I find it. Or not.
Okay, no problem. Clickety click.
Clickety click.
Tick tock, Paul.
Where?
You felt any more pressure? You want me to not ask you that question? I can do that.
It's not right there, Paul. Microsoft.
Oh.
Go back. There. Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I found it. Sorry, here we go. I don't know why I was having trouble finding it, but here we are.
I'm gonna ask you again, okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Then you can go into the answer. All right. Okay, Paul, what's the easy way to know whether or not a control is in WinUI or it's only in the platform?
Yeah, it's a great question. Other than just kind of playing around with autocomplete and seeing what you can find, we actually, if you go up to our docs and you look and you kind of find, Microsoft UI XAML, we've documented, so you can go see all the APIs that are there, and here are those classes. So you can see there's a whole bunch of things that have been moved to WinUI, like the menu bar control, the navigation view, parallax view, person picture, rating control, so on and so forth. So there's tons of the APIs in WinUI, swipe, tree view. These are all kind of in WinUI, and so you can just go look at the docs and you can see that list, or you can play around with IntelliSense and get it too.
Okay, so let me think about this for just a second. WinUI gives me the ability to have the controls that I want inside my application, and to use all the latest features regardless of the version of Windows I am, to within scope.
Yep. And
it seems like I would never use platform controls again.
There are not all controls are in Windows UI. Like Paul was mentioning, Combo Box, for example, is not in Windows UI. So we still have some platform controls that are really just ship as part of Windows. Our vision here, though, and you're seeing a point in time, but our vision here is that we really would like to get all of the platform controls, if you will, into WinUI. It just takes some amount of work to do that, because we have to architect the controls, if you will, cleanly, to sit cleanly on top of the platform. They mostly do that, but not always, and things like Combo Box, the more tricky, complex controls, have some linkages into the platform that we sort of have to decouple. But once we get there, and we are working towards that, our goal will be everything would be in WinUI, and you're right, then at that point in time, you could just use WinUI, and we may not even need the controls on the system. But as of right now, we're not there, and so we ship both the controls that ship on Windows, that's all controls, and then the subset of controls that we currently have done the work to make sure that they can work down-level Windows, and that's where WinUI is.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So if I'm a Windows developer today, I would basically be mixing these together sort of on purpose, letting IntelliSense tell me what I can and can't use, and knowing that if it shows up in NuGet and it also shows up in the platform, the NuGet is going to be a match, and I can actually be comfortable using the one that's in NuGet and get all the features that I hope that it has.
That's correct. And then we do have some cases where the NuGet version, when you're running it on previous versions of Windows, may not light up to all the features. And I think Paul can probably give a specific example, but something like, I think we might have cases, Paul, where Acrylic or Reveal Brush don't work on some of the previous versions of Windows. Is that correct?
Yeah. So what we've done for the most part is we try to have the APIs work, but the behaviors might fall back gracefully. And so for the most part, that's the case. I think there are a couple of cases where if you call certain specific properties or APIs, they may not be supported on certain versions, but if that's the case, we've documented them. But for the most part, anything kind of intrinsic, we just fall back gracefully if it's for some reason we can't do that special effect like Reveal or something on an older version of Windows.
Yeah.
Is there any limitation in leveraging WinUI components within a XAML island that might be running in, say, WinForms?
Not that I know of. I don't know.
Well, we're certainly, we're actively right now working to make sure that we do get rid of any limitations that might exist in that place. XAML Islands is something we sort of did a preview of, or we're releasing a preview of in the next update to Windows. We continue to work on XAML Islands, and we'll continue to work on XAML Islands in the next version of Windows, or the version of Windows that will ship next year, and continue to improve the feature set, and things like that today may not work in, or at least in the next version of Windows that we ship this year, that may not work in XAML Islands with WinUI. We'll continue to make sure that those are working well in the next version of Windows, which will ship sometime next year. Hopefully that's not too confusing, but effectively you can think of XAML Islands now is something that's in a preview state, and working with WinUI you can think of it as a preview state, whereas in the next version of Windows we want to get that more solid so that people can start to take dependencies on a combination of XAML Islands and WinUI.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Nice. And one of the changes we're seeing, of course, in the industry as a whole is that enterprises have reached that point where they're starting to upgrade Windows and see Windows 10 as the standard on their desktop instead of the anomaly on their desktop. And so all of a sudden we have the opportunity to use this flavor of XAML, which you guys call it Windows XAML, right? I mean, is that the? I mean, I don't know.
It's XAML.
It's not XAML, is it? Just XAML? Yeah. All right, we're going to call it XAML.
Best XAML.
The best XAML. Like the latest XAML, fresh XAML, modern XAML.
We call it like Windows 10 XAML is, or UWP XAML are terms that we'll use to sort of clarify. A lot of times we'll call it XAML and disambiguate if we're with the WPF crowd or even a Silverlight crowd or a XAML crowd.
I gotcha. Okay. It's cool to be able to have it so much and to see so much going into it. And I know for a fact, Paul, you're not showing all of the cool enterprise features that you guys are starting to put into the platform. And there's a lot of like happiness in the enterprise world.
Yeah, I hope so. I think we had good reception from people with the new features we showed off at Build. I'll be at Ignite if any of your viewers are there giving a talk and showing some stuff off. So they're welcome to come there and ask questions and see stuff firsthand as well.
Cool. Very cool.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Thanks for being on the episode. I just, I really do have just a soft spot in my heart for XAML. And
I'm a Windows development MVP, so it's my passion too.
So you're preaching to the choir, and we love it. That's for sure. Joe, thanks for letting us do this and making this happen for us, having a great episode. Paul, thanks for a demo that's pretty sweet and showing off how WinUI is probably breathing even more life into a platform that developers just can't help but love.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.